think first of all, thoughts and prayers to the Trump family. I mean, you wouldn't wish this on anybody. And as I think many media pointed out, the president is in the vulnerable age category for the coronavirus. And I hope that, I trust that the White House doctors are doing everything they can to make sure that anyone who's come in contact with him is quarantined, and he is, and he's getting the best possible medical treatment. From a political standpoint, I think it's really too early to know what that would be. It is, and I always am a bit reticent, even though that's why you have me here, is to take something that is potentially tragic like this, but is certainly unfortunate, and try and discern from that or divine from that what might be the ultimate political impact. Having said that, I think from an overall standpoint, in typical political environment, I feel like that caveat is important when you talk about 2020, there would be an outpouring of emotion and support, and probably an uptick in a candidate's favorable, unfavorable number. I think we are in a unique situation here that no matter what happened to either of the four candidates on the running for the presidency and vice presidency, that their numbers are most likely baked in. Any amount of negative ads run or positive ads run or reports or news on what happens to them personally is likely to be inconsequential in terms of the overall numbers. And I just don't see it ultimately having an impact. I hope, though, it allows us as Republicans and Democrats to come together and wish for the best for the president, sort of as we saw the conservatives and the Labour Party do in the UK when Boris Johnson was diagnosed with COVID-19.
Well, I obviously I'm hoping for the best for the president and for the first lady. I really hope for a speedy and quick recovery. I hope that they are receiving the best medical coverage. Medical treatment that they can, and I'm confident that they are. That said, I'm going to be a little bit provocative here. I am glad that this is happening to both of them right now, because I think that half of the country was beginning to believe that this was behind us. I believe that the president was beginning to dismiss this as something that we were past and that we could move on from. And frankly, now the reality is that is not the case. We can no longer dismiss this as something that we're moving past, and he can no longer address this as something that virtually affects nobody, which is a quote from him. This actually is impacting people in very real and very dangerous ways. And maybe it having a direct impact right in his household will govern his actions, will make him take this more seriously, and in turn make the half of the country that is following his lead on this take this more seriously.
I think the attitudes on just about everything are baked in right now, and there's just not a lot that can be done to change people's opinions about whether it's COVID-19 or whether it's the presidential election or whatever the case is, or the NBA finals. That's kind of, everybody's got their jersey pulled on and they're cheering for one side or the other, and there's just not a lot that changes those attitudes right now. And what's interesting about that is I try and look at everything historically, and I try and think back to 2008. I don't remember the world being this partisan after Bush, but it was got pretty bad. And then I think Obama came in and people kind of came together and celebrated the nation's first African-American president. We kind of came together for a while, and then you had the fights over Obamacare and things blew up again and we got partisan, and then we kind of came back together again. It's just like, I think the world goes in like ebbs and flows. It's a circular place. And I just hope this scenario that I'm describing right now is maybe after November, we can get beyond it and kind of start to work together again as a country on a few things.
I hope that's right, Chris. But, I'm afraid that the only way we're able to move past this in November is to have two leaders that are willing to accept the outcome of the election, two leaders that are willing to, no matter what happens, that are willing to reconcile at the end of this and move towards a peaceful transition of power the way that we always have. And I'm afraid that the president's actions and his words imply something very different right now. And I was in focus groups just last night with a group of mid-propensity voters out of Pennsylvania, and I asked them if they watched the debate and what they thought of some of the president's reactions to the outcome of this election. And I asked them if they expected the election to end in violence. And the unanimous hand raise, every single participant raised their hand expecting violence, one of them even implying a woman, even implying that's exactly why I'm going to get a gun. That is a very dangerous place for this country to be in. And we have heard, the racial tensions in this country have been rising for a while now. We've heard rumblings of violence and of the expectation of a civil war even. And that is a place I have never ever seen the country get to. I have never seen voters expect violence from the outcome of an election, expect people to be physically hurt because of the outcome of an election. And I just think that's a dangerous place. And I want to be very clear, that is a place that is a direct result of the president's words, of the president's actions. And if people are hurt at the end of this, he will be responsible for that.
Yeah, I disagree about the violence. I think people have grown to expect violence because we've seen violence over the course of this summer. And I'm not going to cast aspersions or place blame on it because that's not the purpose of our conversation here today. But I do think it is the lowered expectations and the sort of anesthetization of what's acceptable and what is not acceptable is something that cannot become partisan. Because if that's the case, and we can't all stand up and say that violence is wrong, then we are going into a very dangerous place right now.
But is it, I mean, I completely agree, Chris. And I don't think that violence should ever become partisan. But at the point in which the White House is directing intelligence agencies to change the way they talk about Kyle Rittenhouse, I mean, to speak of his vitriolic action against peaceful protesters and to call him defending small businesses, those are actions and words directly from the White House that are calling upon people to take the law into their own hands, that are calling upon people to bear arms and to defend small businesses. This country there's no place for that. There's no place for that. Our law enforcement officers do a very fine job keeping this country safe. There is no place for American citizens to go and bear arms to defend not even their own business, to just go and bear arms to defend any structure or building or business that they deem worth defending, and to do so to take someone's life. For the White House to now go and defend those actions, this is a dark place. It gives me chills. I am angry about it.
I agree with you, Terrance, but I think there are a lot of small business owners in Portland, Oregon, who would disagree with you about their ability of the police to defend their property. And by no means would I suggest that violence is acceptable in a typical situation. But I got to tell you, if somebody came to my home, I would be likely to defend it. And I'm glad, I thank God that I have not been put in that situation. But you and I have both seen the same videos in which people are trying to defend their business and they are attacked. And that is unfortunate. And I think right now you're in we're in a place where we have not been before, to your point, since the Civil War. But, I won't do it again because it almost feels like a parlor trick. But I read an editorial from the main newspaper in Atlanta in which it said, if this president is elected, our voters should not accept it, and we should rise up against it. And I asked the person I was on with, who do you think that was written about? I said, I bet it was written about Trump. I said, no, it was written about Abraham Lincoln. And so we are in a really difficult situation where in which you have members of the media, I would say even those of us who kind of are paramedia when we talk about it, saying that the results should not be accepted no matter what. And that's not acceptable and it shouldn't happen. From an overall standpoint of looking at the polling numbers that you sent out, I think is really fascinating to me because I came away from that debate with maybe a little bit of the same conventional wisdom that I think most others that's been reported since then. And looking at the overall numbers of those people who watched the debate, actually Donald Trump leading in the ballot 45-44 compared to those who did not watch the debate where he trailed by 14 points. Kind of bring this whole conversation full circle. What does that mean for him not being quarantined for 2 weeks with coronavirus? And if it's longer, I think if I remember correctly from this morning, Boris Johnson was out for 3 to 4 weeks. If he's not able to debate again, and if we assume that based on these numbers that Trump actually did better and improved his numbers with those who saw the debate, think about the overall impact that ultimately has on the election. So it's, you know, I don't know how many times we can go through saying that 2020 is unprecedented, and it's approaching everything about it. It's like every day we wake up and there's something new. But look, you and I can agree completely on the need for election integrity and the fact that I hope this election is over on November 3rd, on that night. And that's the best thing that could happen.
That's right.
And where we go from here as a country, and where the president goes from here, is going to be, you know, a fascinating few weeks. So it's like, buckle up.
That's right. And I do hope the president, the first lady, recover quickly and safely. Unfortunately, I don't think that this is. I don't think that this is. I don't expect that there will be more debates as a result of what just happened. In fact, I don't expect that we will have a debate next week between vice presidents. Nothing has confirmed that yet, but you know,
Interesting.
Priority number one is going to be to keep these candidates safe, and to ensure the integrity of this election. I cannot imagine that either one of these campaigns are racing to put their 70-plus-year-old candidate back on a debate stage, especially one that is a town hall in front of voters. That said, there are virtual ways to conduct these. I do think that voters still want to hear both of these candidates make a case for themselves. I don't think that that Joe Biden was able to make a very compelling case for himself over the chaos of the last debate, and I think that his campaign absolutely wants another opportunity at that.